I'm really proud of this podcast. I think it's really good. I'm glad we did it. And I think it will have a 10-year tail.
Me too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm glad we did it, Matt. Are you glad?
Super glad.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
How long of a tail do you think the Bill Simmons podcast or this particular episode will have?
A few feet.
Here at the Bill Simmons podcast, as Bill Simmons does, we measure tails in time units. It's not a get what you pay for back guarantee on the Bill Simmons podcast. It is on the Bill Simmons podcast. Ask executive producer Pierre. It's the Bill Simmons podcast.
Here we go.
Matt, on the first podcast of, I'm going to say last week. Man, that's definitely a lie. It was with Ryan Russillo. It was 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 20 seconds. 54 seconds in, podcasts.
Some of our newest podcasts include...
He means podcasts.
Yes.
Pearl Jam at 2:13. And then at 2:48, this laughter involved no mouth.
Yeah.
At 3:37, this unnecessary article.
Initial DVD that the NBA Entertainment made.
Probably means NBA Entertainment.
Yeah.
All right, try to figure out what's going on here at 4:46.
How every little slight and soundbite and story can blow into a whole one-day thing.
Every slight,
Yep.
every soundbite,
Right.
and every story can blow into a whole one-day thing.
Yes.
It's a lot of blowing.
Somebody's got to do it.
At 6:39, did you know Boston had a famous basketball team with a famous player, Matt?
I've heard.
By the way, Bird was like that too in the Celtics. He had guys.
Only took him 6 minutes and 39 seconds. Although if you count from when Pearl Jam was at 2:13, it was 4 minutes and 26 seconds of actual podcast time. Matt, I think this is a double reverse at 6:59.
Some guys just can't take it. It actually would backfire the other way.
Right? Isn't that... You remember the old Greg Easterbrook Monday or Tuesday morning quarterback where he would say, most reverses are single reverses because the ball only changes direction once after it comes out from under center. This is an Easterbrookian response. It only backfires one way. If it backfires the other way,
Nothing
it's
has happened.
forward firing. At 7:37, this Joe Bluth nominee.
He's not still on the team?
Yeah, he might. He basically had some quote like, yeah, Michael knew.
Jim, mate.
At 8:27, this laughter.
Boston got it.
I like that one.
It's probably worth slow down. Let's hear.
Boston got it.
At 8:49, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Yeah, that one, if you finally landed it.
What did they land? The Boston Common Joke. Great celebration. At 11:37, listen to the gears grind.
I thought that was really interesting.
And the Space Jam part of it where...
I mean, maybe it was just a bad connection or something, but that was the only part where the connection was bad. Matt, at 13:23, listen to what sounds like a parenthetical clarification that makes things more mysterious.
Jalen said Juwan stayed with him in LA, at least for a part of that. MJ.
Yeah.
Now, this is...
It's like in the middle, he was like, I feel like maybe people didn't understand what I was trying to say, and for some reason, this one fucking time I care.
But it doesn't make a difference. It's like if you saw somebody walking by in the background while you're having a conversation with somebody, and then you're just like, man, that was the last time I had Hammond. Oh, Mike! Or possibly Squirrel? At 16:18, I think, Matt, if you listen closely, you will hear the words as well.
In previous pods, this is why the best body control of any NBA player ever.
Yeah.
Man, I think at 16:26, this harkens back to building a basketball player in a science lab. But have a listen, because we're not using some sort of a kit.
If you were starting a basketball player from scratch.
This is not something where Betty Crocker is involved. No jar of ragu. You're not just adding an egg and some oil or boiling some water. You're out in the backyard milling the wheat into basketball player flour.
If we're making humans, this is like you have the primordial ooze.
I have plenty of primordial ooze.
Okay.
I also have a fair bit of secondary ordial ooze, but people aren't as impressed. At 1953, this is what a professional does when faced with an itchy throat and a microphone.
Rigging Patrick Ewing to the Knicks.
He just does not seem to understand that there is some base level of professionalism that you can actually reach when you're a multimillionaire, and that includes turning away from the mic when you clear your throat. Matt at 2813, unnecessary article.
Jordan leaves the baseball, which we just discussed.
He kind of went out of his way. The baseball.
At 3045, I'm with him on the first thing, and I'm against him on the second thing.
The baseball body thing, we talked about it last week when we did the Orlando thing.
If you want to say baseball body thing, I'll allow it. I would still make fun, but I would allow it. When he says Orlando thing, what he means is playoff series.
Yes. Don't even know what he's talking about.
You and your background in divinity, that is to say the study of the spiritual, not your specific holiness,
Right, yeah.
will definitely come into play here at 3529.
They hit some higher being as a combo.
So it could be a couple things. Number one, Jordan and Pippen were a combo, and they both punched the Lord. Or, and I think this is what he means, I really do, this is what he means. When Jordan and Pippen played together, they combined to become something of a godlike Voltron.
Right.
Which is absurd because really two people, regardless of what some of the pop music suggests, never do become one. Sorry, Spice Girls. At 4130, this botch.
Celebrate responsibly.
Not as good as when he said, celebrate responsibility, but still pretty good. At 5444, Matt, time to judge.
The Hearn straight right off the jab.
It's multiple H's.
Oh, I'm kind of surprised because I think you tend to lean.
Yeah, I generally do, but I thought that
Anytime
was
you
an
get
H.
multiple H's in, I'm always kind of
And
shocked
right now,
and
they're in
pleased.
the lead. 1-0.
We'll check back in a little later. Matt, have you ever gone to a circus?
Probably when I was a little kid.
You don't even remember?
I think I definitely went to the circus once.
Did you ever see any of the high wire acts, like the trapeze or the
Yeah.
tightrope or one of those?
Yeah.
What was underneath? Do you remember to prevent sudden death or serious bodily injury?
Like a big net.
Was it designed to bounce people back up from whence they came, or more of a just to save their lives? And
I
then
think it was just to
absorb the
catch
fall?
them. Yeah.
Bill has a better idea at 55-53.
To basically remove the trampoline from the game so that if somebody falls off the tightrope and somebody calls somebody a motherfucker.
So the way it works is, in Bill's mind, if you are walking the tightrope of accidentally having one of your players call another one of your players a motherfucker on live TV,
Right. Which is not really what they're worried about, by the way.
what are they worried about?
They're worried about gay slurs. That's like the thing, is it's relatively prolific. At least one particular F word is thrown around a lot. If you think about it, it's like, yeah, we don't want them saying motherfucker on TV, but nobody would be shocked if they're all motherfucker and everybody up and down. That's not what would be shocking. What would be shocking is if it turns out they were really bigoted about the way they were insulting people.
And so what they'll do is they'll have some sort of a minute or so delay in the game audio, or just the whole game,
Right.
I guess, the game broadcast. And then if there is some bigoted audio, they will be able to bounce it higher
Remove the trampoline.
so that people
Get
can
right
hear
back
it.
on. Yeah.
Right, yes. And then continue the game. Or maybe, in rare circumstances, double bounce.
Yes.
Matt at 5609, more judging.
But if you could hear,
It's hard to make here a CH, but he managed to do it there.
I think this is Homerism, Matt. Or as you would say, Homerism. So now 1-1, right?
Yeah.
At 103.49, this botch.
Roman makes it convenient to get.
Roman, what are you paying for? At 107.07, test me once, shame on you. Test me twice, shame on me.
We're going to get all these tests and we're going to be taking tests away from other people.
Maybe it's like he's trying to say TESSS and then pronounce both the double S and the single S. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I'm worried about saying S too many times. It's going to lose meaning.
At 107.40, etc.
Et cetera, et cetera. And
At 110.14, this Joe Bluth nominee.
this is a chance for her.
At 114.23, you can either fudge numbers or not fudge numbers, but you can't have it both ways.
You can fudge those numbers any way you want. I know to a certain degree you can't.
You can do it any way you want, except the ways you can't.
It's like a bad Boston song, foreigner song. Any way you want it, but to a certain degree you can't.
I was worried there because you started that at like almost a scale above high C, and I was like, oh shit, when he gets to the next part, how's he gonna get up there? But you did it.
By the way, that sexual orientation epithet, it's not fudge, is it?
No, it's not.
Does it include fudge?
Are you thinking it's?
Yeah.
No, it's definitely.
Oh. But wouldn't it be great if they're like, we need a trampoline just in case Clay Thompson limps off the bench and starts calling somebody a fucking fudgebacker in New Jersey. At 117-18, this Joe Bluth nominee.
I was happy. I thought one of the benefits.
Not close to Minion, but it was okay. At 117-40, no one cares, not even Ryan. Well, maybe Ryan a little bit.
So you'll come up with stuff that no one cares about.
We like Ryan. Matt, at 118-45, your thoughts?
Philly would be the number 2 make people the maddest.
How can you be a make person the maddest? But whatever it is, if it's good, we would definitely be number 2, probably number 1.
But if you were outside looking in, would Philly make you number 2 the maddest?
I don't think so. I don't really understand I think Bill is a little bit blinded because when he grew up, the Sixers and the Lakers were like their main rivals. So I think Bill is biased against Philly. Also, we beat him in the Super Bowl. But I don't know what the Philly hate is. I think the Philly hate is Bill created.
At 120-27, listen to Urban Bill. And then guess what happens after he introduces this?
I'm like, oh, you want some, young buck?
Now that's Bill talking to his son about playing video games.
Right.
And if you don't think that Bill, who has not played many video games, after just a little bit of practice, beat his son at video games.
It was like one game he beat him.
I end up, I break him. I win by 18.
His son beats him in a game, but that was a practice game.
I don't even know what I'm doing. He's beating me. And I'm like, by about third quarter, I figured out he's up 20. I'm like, start over.
But after that, Bill was ready. And then Bill did beat his 12-year-old son at video games.
I'm like, okay, bring it on, motherfucker.
And then the best part is, then knowing that he was very angry about it, proceeded to mercilessly mock him for the rest of the day.
I'm like, no, you don't understand. You just lost to modern basketball.
At 122-41, great timing on this bail.
Corner threes and setting a P and just fire up as many threes as
setting a P.
Which is, I think, something you can only do with your son.
Right.
If I were to take one of my daughters outside and try to teach her to shoot corner threes and then set a P, I think the neighbors would be alarmed. At 124-19, this botch.
Thank you, joined Navy Federal Credit Union.
At 130-26, my favorite Joe Bluth nominee, a bailing one.
Malone was like one of the most durable. It's him, Kareem, and LeBron.
One of the most durable.
He was almost there.
Yeah, I don't know why he does this. I think it's because he decides, as you have pointed out, he's just in such a hurry to get onto his next thought that he doesn't bother. But I think he thinks it's okay because he's like, you're with me. They're all with me. I can move on. At 136.09, possible Joe Bluth nominee.
That fist, the one fist pump up there.
The one fist pump up where?
There. You know how sometimes you do it down?
Or the sideways fist pump, the famous late 70s submarine fist pump. At 137.39, disappointed by Ryan's pop culture faux pas.
This is like Drake going from Degrassi to running the rap game.
Oh, yeah.
Degrassi, not Del, Degrassi.
Degrassi is like a shitty taco place.
Matt, at 140.38, this doesn't make sense, and also bad subject-verb agreement.
Whatever they told the rest before the games are just executed correctly.
At 146, bad subject-verb agreement.
And I think by the time this playoffs are ended,
if you decide that collectively playoffs is a plural, the playoffs, a playoffs, you then cannot follow it up with a singular verb form. So you would have to say these playoffs are ended or this playoffs is ended, which sounds super bizarre. It's kind of like fudging the numbers, but not. At 146.10, whenever inventions are involved, I'm interested.
But he was able to kind of reinvent that.
How do you reinvent something that you never were if you're John Stockton? If you were never clutch, do you reinvent your clutchness into being clutch? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, in a laboratory. He time machined it.
Great segue, Matt. To 15 seconds later at 146.25.
You almost want to go in a time machine and go tell him in like 1990.
It would have made a lot more sense to just say, you want to go back in time. But he always has to involve the fucking device.
Yeah, because in Bill's mind, if time travel's ever going to exist, the only way it's going to work is via time machine.
At 2:11:33, more awkwardness.
Is one of the most entertaining things of Game 6.
I liked when he was on TV.
Apropos of nothing.
Yes. I like totals. At 2:12:25, I think it's a Joe Bluth nominee.
He had already finished. He'd already submitted the resume, and we had approved it.
Yeah.
At 2:13:05, affirmation.
And I'll have the author Nick Bilton on.
Great. All right.
Great. Wasn't listening, but you seemed like you were done talking, so I'll compliment you. At 2:13:23, this ad swallow.
First, on car loans,
At 2:13:33. At 2:13:41, this promo swallow.
new rewatchables coming.
Also, out of context theater. And finally, at 2:13:49, bad branding.
And then we'll have another BS pod.
We'll be back after this.
Oh, you want some, young buck?
Matt, we use Anchor.fm for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, and it's free. Anchor will not only let you record and edit, you can also distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more through Anchor. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is handy for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. When I was first dating my wife, she was very shy around me. And there would be a lot of
You, the
conversation.
person she was dating?
I'm sure she was shell-shocked, especially if it was one of those dinner dates where she was just watching me mash protein and carbs into my maw. And so she would have a tendency to be pretty quiet. And so then a lot of times in the conversation, I would just go, "What do you think about that?" And then we fell in love. Here are all the things Bill and his guests found delicious in the last week. Or just funny sounds.
I'm playing for
Wearing only like
knowledge.
My one is
Like when they're
Now, in the second episode of last week or so, first Tony Kornheiser, who was kind of just an annoying old man, and then Van Lathan, who I was prepared to hate from his last appearance. Wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So enthusiastic.
I don't love him.
Yeah, but it wasn't terrible. I wasn't like irritated. It wasn't like listening to Wesley Morris.
That's true.
It was an hour, 44 minutes, and 21 seconds. 0 seconds in, this bad branding.
Zero.
tonight's episode of the BS podcast,
And then at 1:13, why would you bother looking up how to pronounce it when you can do this?
epidemiology. Boy, that's another word I can't say. Epidemiology expert.
That's a word I can't say. I'll say it wrong again.
Yeah. Pearl Jam at 2:09. And then time zones at 2:30.
Pacific time on the West Coast
At 7:58, thoughtful lip licking.
will recognize their union. Since then,
Back in the day, I would have blamed snakes.
That's fair. And I would have been like, what?
At 10:33, Bill is just mocking us.
burning through tests that
Right? He says test, and then he says
and then
tests.
Yeah.
I mean, not perfectly,
He's like,
but come on.
I can do it. Just don't want to.
Yeah, he didn't want to here either. 20 seconds later at 10:53.
you're burning through these tests.
Just blows my mind. Also, 11:36.
We might have a couple tests here.
Now, Matt, I am not an epidemiologist, but I know better than to try to pretend to be one. Bill does not at 11:44.
It might be somebody who had it in them and now it comes out because everybody's been playing basketball for a month.
Maybe if a basketball player has COVID in him,
Right.
but they don't know it, and
And it
then they
would
go
come
into
out.
quarantine, and then they play a bunch of basketball, and the COVID-19 virus comes out. He's been watching too much Alien, right? COVID is not like a chest burster or whatever those dudes are called. Is that what they're called? Chest bursters?
Also, why would playing basketball make it come out?
Remember when the CDC warned everyone? Now listen, folks. We want you to practice social distancing. We want you to wear masks when you're out in public. That's masks.
Right.
We want you to wash your hands thoroughly, and we do not, under any circumstance, want there to be hoops played, because that virus that's lying dormant in you could just come out.
It loves basketballs.
At 12:06, again.
Positive tests.
At 13:35, I don't have any words.
A big place that has a bunch of things in it that you'd want to be.
Would you want to be a big place that has a bunch of things in it? Or would you want to be the bunch of things in the big place? Either way, the answer is no. Matt, among the things at 16 minutes that LeBron can lay claim to is the chance of becoming something special.
He doesn't have a lot of chances left here as a title.
I think he means at a title, but maybe he will become a title himself. This laughter.
I'm 3 hours.
Slowed down, even better.
I'm 3 hours.
21:45.
Whoever else you're ready for.
Now, I think what he's trying to say is, and for whatever you were writing for? It almost sounds like he deconstructs the word Revlon on the fly. At 29.55, this swallow.
Michael. And then
listen to Tony Kornheiser's explanation for why he likes Babe Ruth at 30.12.
Because I studied English and history as a kid. My list always includes Babe Ruth.
What does English have to do with this?
I'm not even sure what history has to do with anything. Because,
Babe Ruth happened in the past.
Well, yeah, but like didn't they all?
Touche. More judging at 33.57.
just hoping maybe.
Yeah, that's a dunk. Matt, at 41.37, do you know the hilarious joke about Linda Ronstadt in or possibly about or with the song Blue Bayou?
No.
Well, you're the perfect audience for this podcast.
Is the joke that they make about Linda Ronstadt and Blue Bayou. That's what it is.
Right.
You can tell Bill is definitely in on the Linda Ronstadt / Blue Bayou.
Joke?
And I went and I Googled Linda Ronstadt Blue Bayou and listened to it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Still no clue.
And Bill, yeah, right.
49.24. I think we've already answered this, but we'll go ahead and listen to the question anyway.
I want to know, what are the signs that I'm officially turning into an old sports media white guy?
You continually bring up teams from your childhood. You find every possible way to insert your favorite teams into the conversation. You consistently mispronounce words or misuse words. You gloss over the fact that most of your English makes no sense. And you go out of your way to appear woke. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty good. He checks all the boxes.
All the check marks.
All the checkpoints.
At 49.38, I've lost my appetite.
I don't know how that works. I mean, old is
Crusty.
Chronological.
I guess there's a difference between old sports media white guy and crusty sports media white guy. Matt, at 50.49, I think regenerated has regenerated another syllable.
Plus, Brady regenerated his hair.
Regenerated.
Maybe that's what he was trying to do with Revlon earlier.
Regenerated.
Matt, at 53.09, we're back on the trampoline subject, it appears.
Started screaming, motherfucker at somebody else or whatever. You protect, like, whatever you have to protect.
The trampolines.
Yes. At 101.28, in addition to bulking up, here's all you have to do.
Well, you had to bulk up at that point and do the whole thing.
What was the rest of the thing, Matt? At 133.46, the swallow.
Well, they announced today they're going to open some of the beaches here.
At 134.10, listen to what you can do without other people. Probably my favorite line, and it goes remarkably unremarked upon.
You can kind of do everything without other people in the room. Mm-hmm. You could order food.
All right, order food. I've done that before. You ever order food without other people in the room?
Yep, possible, definitely.
All right, next.
You could have sex.
I know what he's getting at, but I'm not sure that would be my number 2 thing.
It's getting right to the point.
Let's see what else you can do in the room by yourself.
You can watch TV. You can rent movies.
Yeah. I mean, I really agree with that one. That's the kind of thing I would talk about on a top-rated podcast. Seems like a weird list and maybe kind of a weird order. At 139.30, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Like, what is the next Coachella?
Is it Coachella?
Yeah.
I think it's Coachella.
No, it's Coachella.
Dealing with one's own mortality, facing the future as uncertain as it is, and knowing only that you will at some point shuffle off, as they say, this mortal coil, hopefully leaving behind memories and loved ones and a feeling of goodwill. It's difficult to conceive of, and sometimes even more difficult to put into words the passage of time. Bill tries at 142.36.
We get a year older, but somebody also gets a year older who now becomes in the range of somebody who would enjoy this show.
As Bill gets a year older, and as Van Lathan gets a year older, there is one other person, and that person is also getting a year older.
Right.
But as that person gets a year older, he or she gets into the range of someone who would enjoy the show.
Of course. What the fuck is going on? We'll be back after this.
Matt, as always, we want to thank the people that support us monetarily, not the people that support us emotionally, because honestly, emotional support doesn't pay the bills the way Josh N., Jeff G., Scott B., Sean, and our friends at College Football Brothers Podcast support us with money. They do it through Patreon, patreon.com/bspodpod. You can also support us as David P. and Scott B. do through Anchor. That's anchor.fm/bspodpod. David, as we always say, you're giving us too much money. Also, I think Scott B. is possibly giving us money through Anchor and Patreon. Scott, it's not worth it. Thank you very much to our producers. Oh, by the way, I got a tweet response from Massa Capital, who was like, hey, I got name checked. You just did it again. Worth it. Finally, Matt J.A. Adande, Nick Kroll, and Jason Concepcion, but not in that order.
Even though it was plugged in that order.
0 seconds in, bad branding.
Tonight's episode of the BS Podcast.
At 107, Bill begins promoting this new show that's on the Ringer Podcast Network. The series is apparently called Boom or Bust, or possibly Boom Bust. This season of the series is called The Rise and Fall of HQ Trivia. Listen to how Bill promotes it.
Boom Bust, The Rise and Fall of HQ. 2 episodes coming.
He leaves out trivia, which I thought was weird because it makes a lot more sense if you know they're talking about HQ Trivia as opposed to just some random headquarters. But Bill really seems to think this is the name of the show and or the app, because listen again 10 seconds later at 117.
You might remember the HQ, the trivia app.
If he had just said the HQ Trivia app, he would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
At 128, he means podcasts.
Podcasts.
There's an argument to be made that when he does that, it's another example of him just talking too fast and not being able to get through the whole word. But he took his time there, and he enunciated, and he still said Cass.
Yes.
At 207, what happens when you break promises, Bill?
I'm going to read that to you. You'll enjoy it, I swear. I promise.
It's like in the Goonies, you know, whenever they find the all the coins that had been thrown into the wishing well, and then Mouth picks one up, and he was like, I threw this in, and my wish never came through, so I'm taking it back. But I guess you get what you pay for.
What do we get back?
Our lives. Pearl Jam at 241. This does not make any sense. At 526.
He soaked poker buddies from teammates on...
I think he means he soaked poker money
Yeah.
from teammates on flights.
Monies.
And in fact, if you go back and look up this column, that's what he wrote. 1239.
Once the media pressure and public attention becomes too overwhelming...
The media pressure and public attention is a plural subject clause.
Yes.
Pressure and attention. It therefore requires a plural verb form, which would be become.
Right.
He uses becomes.
Becomes.
At 1713, turns out this whole chromosome thing is a lot older than I thought.
That goes back to a peculiar DNA gene.
Now, genes are made up of DNA, Matt.
Right.
So how you can have a DNA gene, apparently it's a gene that is made up of DNA and also is for your DNA.
It's like a circle that keeps eating itself.
It's the circle of life, known as Hakuna Matata.
No, that's different.
Hakuna
Hakuna
Matata.
Matata. That's
It's
the motto.
Circle of life. Right?
Okay, fine.
At 2156, this swallow.
Well, either. I went to a party once.
At 3228, I'm wondering, should somebody be offended here?
This is Urban MJ, the one that comes out for the Black Super Bowl.
It just seems a little racially
Yeah, I'm
tone-deaf to
surprised
me.
he read it.
At 3606, listen for the H's and much more.
Whether you're doing 1 million or hundreds of millions in sales,
I think it was a CH, but it was close.
How are teams similar to cars?
and that's the first time the hood is kind of lifted on this team.
In this analogy, or in this figure of speech, he wants to look at the inside of a team's engine by
Yes.
lifting its hood. At 4753, J.A. Adande is a professor of sports journalism at Northwestern University.
Northwestern, yep.
And he says this.
That's a key difference between he and Michael.
He means between him and Michael.
Yes.
Between, preposition him, objective form. But if you're at the second or maybe third best journalism school, far behind mighty Missouri, I guess it's understandable.
Missouri?
Best journalism school ever, Matt. And first
According to who?
First, dude, everyone. It's a thing. Missouri, #1 journalism school. At 5537.
It's going to delve into no areas that's going to make this person uncomfortable, make them look bad.
It's going to delve into no areas that is going to make this person uncomfortable or make him look bad.
Or make him look bad.
At 1 hour 31 seconds, this bail.
That version of Jordan versus what came out. I personally enjoyed.
No. I think he means after, or what he was going to say is after, and he's just like, just go with me, folks. At 101.56, this Joe Bluth nominee.
You know, there's been some anti-Isaiah stuff.
At 108.23, deep sinus laughter.
Also, possible fart.
That was the chair. 121.43, whose truth is that?
Ben's truth is Ben's truth.
Yeah.
Turns out it was Ben's truth.
Yeah.
I think truth is one of those things that's not subjective.
That's
right?
correct.
It's objective.
It's just truth. Yeah.
Ben's truth is Ben's truth. Yeah.
At 122.06, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Also, how does that explain some of the other moves?
At 131.49, this laughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Bill plus Concepcion laughing
Yeah.
at the same time.
I think
Concepcion, notoriously rough laugher.
That's Concepcion.
Yeah. But then I think the is Bill. It's like how they used a bunch of different animal noises to simulate Chewbacca. At 133.18, this laughter.
Hey, number one. That's it.
Slowed down, worse.
Hey, number one. That's it.
At 133.48, has Bill figured out that Boom Bust is about HQ trivia?
Season 1 is about the rise and fall of HQ.
No.
Nope. Is HQ trivia that thing where it was like you would have to get 20 questions right, and then
It was like a
got them all
live
right?
trivia show, and then you would get like
Yeah.
$1,000.
That is the subject of a podcast?
When the lady who did Boom Bust, man, I just want to call it Boom Bust, like it's about the people that own the Lakers. She posted a receipt on Twitter and said it had something to do with the podcast series, and I responded to the tweet by saying warm bowl, which was on the receipt, and then she liked it. I'm here for you, Boom Bus lady.
The boom bus is like it's a less pornographic.
Instead of a bus with a bunch of dudes driving around and pretending to entice young gals to do them, it's just a bunch of guys farting. That's the Boom Bus.
Boom bus.
Yeah. And surprisingly, not a lot of subscribers to boombus.com.
It's like a really specific fetish.
I didn't realize there was a sexual element. I just like to see if they have some good farts going. At 133.54, he means exists.
Podcasts. Speaking of Spotify, music exists.
At 143.47, this laughter.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Slow it down.
Yeah.
Better. At 144.33, this Joe Bluth nominee.
So that's what I say. It didn't work that well.
I don't even know if it was Joe Bluth. I just couldn't understand it. Around here, Matt, especially at 150.146, we measure taste by how high your taste is.
He has high taste for that stuff.
Hey Chris, how
Have you been able to measure Matt's taste for that? His taste is very high.
It's very high. Okay, that solves it for me. I got it now.
I think he's confused taste with tolerance. You remember the question about whether or not Bill is an old white media guy?
Yeah.
I think we're getting close here to answering it at 2:22.
I think we were close when he talked about Urban Jordan.
Matt, don't interrupt. This is 2 hours and 22 seconds.
Hold on. I'm going to give him you got to put the headphones on.
There we
Hold on.
go.
All right. Come in. You got to sit down.
The nice thing is, even when he's instructing his son how to podcast, he bails.
Come on, son. You know that obscene show I let you watch? Come talk to the creator, who is embarrassed that I'm letting you talk to him.
At 2:06:49, out of context theater.
Priscilla and I are coming on Sunday night.
Gross. What do you think, Matt?
Pretty good.
This was good.
I agree.
Yeah.
Matt, here's the review. Lame. 1 star. I guess the only thing more pathetic than having a podcast nobody cares about is having one that just picks apart an actually successful one. It's a pretty good point.
What's the username? I need to spam them.
Capital A, capital A, capital A, dash, capital J, capital M, capital K, from the United States of America. You know that person?
Definitely not a burner account.
In this case, I would point out, as we would under any other circumstance, AAA, JMK should be than, THAN, not
Yeah.
then, THEN.
Yeah.